Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before we begin, I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank my anchor sponsors. I want to thank Camilo, Sergio, Jake. Thank you guys for sponsoring the podcast. Also want to thank Dents on Border. If you have any small dents on your car, make sure you follow them on Facebook. I'll leave the link to their Facebook page. Also want to thank Sergio's Tacos and Hotdogs, serving the Imperial Valley for over 8 years with Mexicali style hot dogs and tacos. Also want to thank Dylan Castillo from Castillo Bookkeeping and David Costellum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in the Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you contact David. His phone number is 760-235-9576. Also, like I've been doing these last episodes, I want to shout out a local business. You know, our local businesses need our help right now. So today I want to shout out 111 Club Bar in Calexico. It was before Las Chavelas of 111, and everybody knows, 111 on Imperial, so you know where it's at. They have a new name, new owner, and they're open now. They're serving some really delicious ceviches and other, mariscos and stuff. So make sure you visit them. They have a Instagram page. I'll leave their link below. But yeah, let's help our local businesses, go through these hard times. So with that, I want to welcome my guest today. My guest today is a city council member from El Centro. He's also a professor at IVC. My guest today is Tomas Oliva. Thank you for being here today.
Hello, sir. Thank you for having me.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes as to why I wanted to talk to you today, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I live in El Centro, graduated here locally. The only reason why I left was to go and study. I have my bachelor's public law from UC San Diego, my master's in public administration from San Diego State. I've been in politics for 13 years now, serving as a staffer from the Attorney General's office to the State Assembly. My day job, I represent the congressman of this area, Juan Vargas. And so technically I have 3 jobs. So I do federal oversight during the day, city council by night, and then at the very, very night, I teach in IVC. So I like to stay busy.
Yeah, that's good, especially during these times where there's a lot of things going. Staying busy is kind of good.
It's important for mental health.
Yeah, exactly.
Boredom can hurt.
Exactly. So I want to talk to you today because me and you have something in common. We are part of the COVID-19 trial program that's going on here in El Centro.
That's right.
The way I found out about it was I saw a Facebook notification that the city of El Centro was having a presentation, and it was when the presentation for the COVID-19. And well, I was watching the live stream, and then afterwards I visited the website, and I was kind of thinking about should I try it or not, and especially because I've been following since day one. I have high blood pressure and sleep apnea, so I'm high risk if I would get the disease. So I've been really, really trying to be careful, and I was following all these vaccines and antibodies and all these. And something that I found that was in common was how Hispanics and African Americans are one of the most affected by the COVID-19. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that aren't from our Hispanics or Mexicans or African Americans being part of this trial, because I don't know. Do you think it's because as Hispanics we're a little bit afraid of new medicine, or what are your thoughts on?
I think culturally, there's always that stereotype of no, ¿pa qué voy el doctor? Nomás me va a decir que estoy malo. Es mejor no saber, right? I don't want to know. Maybe there's some truth to that, but there is a legitimate sense of hesitation and concern when it comes to a vaccination, because we're trying it out, and it doesn't have that green light seal of approval on it that it would be mass produced. This is on a volunteer basis. They're still trying it out, and so it really takes a certain type of person with certain circumstances that's able and willing to do it, to participate. And so it's not for everyone, because it hasn't been tried and tested yet, and that's what we're doing. We're testing it.
Yeah, and I mean, it might sound a little bit corny or I don't know, kind of dumb, but when I saw because like I said, I was watching the live stream and then I went to their website. I got home and I was on Instagram and I saw you actually taking the shot, and I was like, I mean, if he's taking it, why not me, right? What kind of made you decide to take it?
Well, first of all, if you don't mind me saying, I was a little shocked and humbled that there was a lot of people that saw that I did it and either did it themselves and didn't tell me, or called me and told me, I saw that you did it, I'm going to do it too. And I'm happy and I'm proud of that, because one of the things that I've always wanted to do being in office is I wanted to be the type of person that people trust. And I wanted to earn it, and I wanted to honor that trust. Because I think it's important so that when I do something like this, people know that I've thought about it and that I know what I was doing. So why did I do it? I have to say, I've been in politics for a long time, but I've always been the guy sitting in the audience. I was always the staff member, right? And so I remember in many years, I would sit out into the audience looking up at elected officials and think to myself, why aren't you doing this? Like, you're asking me to do it. Why aren't you doing it, right? So now that I'm up there, I've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that perspective. So I thought to myself, well, one of us needs to do it, because if we're asking people to do it, one of us should. And to be quite honest, as I looked over to my colleagues, they all have spouses, they have children. They might have other family members, older family members that live in their household. And I thought, my circumstance is different. I'm single, I don't have children. And so if I were to be impacted by it and I needed to quarantine, it would be easier for me to do that. If I needed to be separated from somebody for 2 weeks, I could do that. So I just kind of didn't want to necessarily put it on them, but be honest to myself that if any one of us could do it, and should there be a struggle, that I would be okay, it should be me. And so that's why I measured everything. And, I texted someone who's very special to me, and I asked her, like, would you mind if I participated in this? And the funny thing, her response was hilarious. She said, nope, your body, your choice. I was like, okay. And then that's all I need to know. Let's go do it.
Yeah, my wife was kind of shocked because like 2 weeks before that, I had taken my flu shot, and I was kind of like iffy about it. Like, should I take my flu shot? Like, I don't know. Like, I normally, when I get sick, I don't take like, especially with the cold, I don't take over the counter stuff because I was like, I'll just drink water and vitamin C.
Wait it out.
Yeah, like especially for a cold, I feel that just my body will naturally get rid of it, right? Mm-hmm. So like big things like this, sometimes I'm iffy about it. But yeah, like I said, I had been really careful about taking care of myself, taking care of my family. And, I felt like I was doing my part in that sense, but I was like, maybe I could do a little bit more. And when I went there, did you get to read all, like, because when I went there, they put me in a room, and then you get to read all the documentation,
the waivers and the declarations and all that stuff.
Yeah. So like, reading through it, talking to the doctor, and then just, the fact that they reiterate the fact that whenever you want to, stop this, you're more than free to, quit the trial. That kind of made me a little bit more comfortable in the sense of taking the vaccine. I don't even think my parents know that I took the vaccine. I think my wife and a couple of other family members know. But what are does your family think about it?
My mom, so I told my dad, and I think maybe my dad found out because of a post on Facebook or something, but my mom found out. My mom was like the same thing that maybe perhaps you and others did. She said, I know you think about things, Tomas, and you wouldn't just dive head first. So if you're going to do it, then it could be okay. And even my mom wants to do it. And I just said, you know what, Mom, like it'll throw you off. My mom's a teacher right now. And I said, if I had to ask for days off, it's easier for me. You're not so much in that position to be asking for days off, because with distance learning, how are you going to get a substitute for your students? I just said, just really think about it. Ultimately, my mom will do whatever she wants to do. But especially my older sister, who's a registered nurse in Colorado, she called me concerned. Are you okay? How are you feeling? I'm like, I'm fine. I'm good. But they were a little concerned, and I think it's because the general public has a preconceived notion of the vaccine and like in what stage it's in, and because of, and there's a sprinkle of politics in there too, right? And whether you absolutely trust this administration or you have complete distrust with this administration, that might actually influence your viewpoint on this. But I had done my homework, and I trust the doctors in the ECRMC, Dr. Tomaszewski and Dr. Edward. So, and because we're associated with UC San Diego, and that's where I went to school with, like, I know that they're not playing politics with this.
Yeah. I think that's the fact that he was wearing his coat and he had the UC San Diego logo, and you feel like comfortable with the fact that he's a doctor, and
right.
I mean, you feel that doctors and scientists aren't politically driven, so you kind of feel safe in that sense. Did you get any side effects from it? Like, did you feel drowsy or?
Maybe just a little tired. I know that my arm was sore. It was like really tender. Like if I raised it about that level or higher, it would start to hurt. But it didn't knock me out. It didn't throw me off my game. And I have like an exercise routine in the morning. So I told the doctor that if I wake up tomorrow not being able to do it, I know you probably gave me the real stuff. But if I'm able to do it, you probably gave me the placebo. And he says, well, I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but I really couldn't tell you, And so he's like, you could take it and it could mean nothing, right? Like there's people who say they take the flu shot y como si nada, it doesn't affect them. And then there's other people that are like, oh my God, I was nauseous for like a day. So we each react differently. And that's also part of the trial.
Yeah. Because I did notice that night that I took it, I did have a little bit of body aches, no temperature, but just body aches. And even till the next day, probably like midday, I was still feeling like my body was aching, and like my arm was sore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. And it's for the people that don't really know much about, the trial is like, you either get a placebo or you get the real shot. Neither you or the doctor know what you got. So.
Right. It's random. The computer generates it, right? And you have a 1 in 3 chance that you'll get the placebo, 2 of 3 chances that you'll actually get the actual vaccine. And so it's a toss-up. And that's why I say that I think I got the placebo. I mean, I don't know, to be honest, though.
Yeah. And do you know how many people they're doing the trial on?
No, I don't. But I think this company in particular is hoping to do 30,000 trials or volunteers. I think here in the Valley, I'm not sure if it's between the Valley and San Diego, but I remember reading in that iPad that they gave us, right, that of 30,000, 20,000 we're going to get the vaccine, 10,000 we're going to get a placebo. It's randomized, but with 30,000, they would be able to reach, statistically significant data in order to generalize and assume if this vaccine strain, right, if this protein combination that they have is good enough for the general public.
Okay. Do you have any information of how long they're planning on doing the trial? Like, how long are they going to be taking people in?
No, I think it's until they reach that amount, and depending on when you start, I think it's like a 2-month monitoring time where, they, once you sign all the waivers and the things that you have to sign, they will administer the vaccine. They take your blood, no, backwards. They take your blood, they do the COVID test, and then they hit you put the vaccine. And then 2 weeks later, you go in, they draw blood, and then they do the COVID test. And then 2 weeks after that, which is a full month from the first visit, you get a booster shot. And then from that booster, 2 weeks later, you go in again. I think they draw blood again, COVID test. And then I think after the end of the second month, that's when they do a complete follow-up. And I think at that point, they don't really need much from you, but they still observe you every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like they'll call you in, like, how are you feeling? Any side effects? Because it's also important to know whether the vaccine causes any long-term side effects that we just don't know yet.
Yeah, I have my my first follow-up next Thursday on the 19th.
Okay.
And yeah, they told me that from then they'll schedule my my booster.
Yeah, my booster I think is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm gonna do. And I have to say that the whole reason why all of this is important is because I think there's about 5 different companies that are developing a vaccine, right? And, you know, I think the one that got the most attention this last week was Pfizer, because they came out claiming that their strain or their formula is 90% effective. The one that we took, it comes from AstroZeneca, and that's another company. And the reason why all this matters is because if there were just one company that were to find, you know, to come with the secret formula that we're all going to use, imagine how long it will take for that one company to create the millions and tens and hundreds of millions that we're going to need for our country, let alone for the rest of the world, so that we can get to a point where we can all get it. So the good thing is you have many different companies that are coming up with a formula, and should they also be good, that means that it would be sooner for all of us here in the Valley to have it, and to, you know, California, United States, to have it available, so that sooner, hopefully, we can get back to a normal life.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the Valley was chosen just because of, you know, the high rate of number of COVID cases we were having?
I'm pretty sure that played a factor, because even the doctor alluded to the fact that in order to really test the vaccine, you need it to be exposed to people who potentially could have it to see if it withstands it, right? So obviously you and I, we were injected with something, right? Let's say I have the placebo and you have the real thing, and we're going around living our lives. Because the rates of infection are really high in Imperial County, the likelihood that you and I would get exposed to someone is higher. So therefore, if through this entire time, right, this entire trial, you never test positive, and let's say they're able to find out that you got the real stuff, then that proves that the vaccine works. And let's say I got the placebo, and somewhere through the entire trial, right, I got exposed and I tested positive, then it proves again that you got the real stuff, I got the placebo, and that's why you didn't test positive and I did, right? So all of that is part of the trial, per my understanding. And that's why, yeah, I would say our rate of infections did play a factor into that decision.
Yeah. How has you know, being a city council member and you know, the Valley, especially with COVID, affected, you know, the way you kind of make decisions? Because I mean,
yeah,
you know, it's I understand it's really hard to make decision as it is, but now with COVID, you know, that you're being a little bit more precautious and kind of not taking the popular route. How has it affected, you know, the way you make decisions as a city council member?
You know, I have to tell you, it was very difficult in the beginning, and it still is difficult, because I don't take the number of people in our hospitals very lightly. Whether it's correct for me to do this or not, I take it personally, because I feel that, like, while I'm in this position, it is my responsibility to keep people safe. That's the whole reason for government. It's the whole reason why I think people put me in this position, is at the end of the day to keep them safe. And I have found it very difficult to do that, because as a politician, you want to be popular, you want to be liked, right? But many times we've had to make decisions that were not popular, that made us lose supporters, but ultimately was the right thing to do to keep people safe. And it's also very difficult when you have people who choose to ignore safety protocols, or choose to, you know, not do what we're asking them to do. So I can only do my part. And so I do what I'm asking people to do. I mean, I'm staying home as much as possible. I go out to the store to get groceries. I will go to work, but I'm always wearing my mask. I try not to touch my face. Sometimes I'll go to the store with my sunglasses still on because they're prescription, and I don't want to be taking stuff on, putting my hands in my face. I have hand sanitizer in the car, in the dining room table, at the office, everything. But I will say that it's difficult because I'll go to Buckland Park and I'll still see people without masks. And when I tell them, they give me this look like, who are you? Stop bothering me. The other day, I went to go pump gas at Costco, and the guy behind me was driving a truck. And I saw him, get off the car, go to the machine, no mask. And so I'm already, at this point, I'm like, okay, here we go, right? Like, what am I going to say? So I told him, excuse me, sir, please remember to put your mask on. And he gives me this look like, yeah, whatever. And I thought, see, that's the problem. Por eso estamos como estamos, right? Like, what more can I say to you in order for you to care? And if you don't want to care about you and your family, please care about someone else. And so I looked over to a couple of pumps away. There was another guy, same thing. So I said, okay, maybe it's because the attendant here is not enforcing the rules. So I walked up to the attendant, and I told them, hey, look, I'm a council member for the city, and you need to start telling people. And you know what he told me? And this is the sad part. He said, we do. But now all of the attendees that work at the Costco gas station, we're done. He says, because people yell at us, people get mad. He said, the last person I told to put on their mask said, shut up, leave me alone. Otherwise, you're going to get a punch in the face. And I thought, are you kidding me? This is the community saying, I don't care about that stuff anymore. While there are no ICU beds in our hospitals sometimes, right? Where there's a surge in people going into the hospitals. Sometimes we'll have like 2 ICU beds available. And this goes back to the politics that I was talking about earlier before we started the show, that, you can't just think of yourself. This isn't I'm being inconvenienced, I don't want to do it. You have to say to yourself, I need to do this because even though I don't like it, it might save someone else. And during this entire pandemic, I have 2 different friends who lost, their mothers. And I hear those stories. Maybe because of my position, I hear those stories more than the regular resident. But I do hear them. And I do think that we need to do our part. And so the hardest thing for me is to really seize the authority part of my role and really enforce the rules, whether it makes me popular or not, to tell people, look, if you refuse, there is a fine. It's $1,000 fine if you don't wear your mask, and I have no problem citing you if you want to ignore it, because my job is to protect people, and I do not want us to end up on CNN again. I don't want us to end up on Fox News, on the national news, of how we have the highest rate of infection in the entire country again. That should not be what we're known for.
Yeah, and to me, it's crazy the fact that there's 340 some families here in the valley that lost somebody.
I think it's 343 or 345.
Yeah, that lost somebody, and still, I don't know, it still doesn't resonate with people, that the fact that, this is real, and it's killing people, and I'm fortunate that I haven't lost anybody close to me. My brother-in-law got really sick. He was in the hospital. He was really, really sick. But he's okay now. But yeah, like I said, I haven't had that experience, but not because I haven't had it, not being careful, not wearing my face mask. And even, you see people on social media, like whenever they share, the CNN, news coverage about the Imperial Valley, like they still say it's not real. I have friends that are work at the hospital that are like really like, I see their posts on whether it's Instagram and or Snapchat, where they're, having to put all these masks and gowns and stuff to be safe and not catch the virus. And it's like, why are people still not believing it, or not being careful, or being offended when you ask them to, put a mask on. It's I don't know, it's unreal.
Yeah. I've heard the argument where you try to draw a parallel. No one gets mad because, first of all, there's a law and there's enforcement about wearing your seatbelt when you're driving a car, when you're in a car. So very few people, I think in 13 years, I've only heard one person try to argue to me that it shouldn't be enforced, that it's a violation of their constitutional rights to force them to wear a seatbelt while they're driving a car, which, to be quite honest, is not an arguable point of view. But if you believe wearing a seatbelt should be, it's something you could do, it's not intrusive, then just wear your mask. It saves you, it saves others. If you prefer not to wear it, there's, what I found, there's different types, meaning if you wear the surgical one, at least me personally, when I wear a cloth one, after like an hour, yeah, I might have some difficulty breathing. Certainly, it'll fog up my glasses.
Yeah.
If I do the surgical one, I last longer in the sense of being able to breathe before it actually bothers me. And then I've seen some people with that even then they can't. So there's some where you can wear a face shield, or there's ones where you can wear glasses and the glasses are hooked up to face shields. So there's all sorts of things that you could do. And I think the effort really just shows respect that you have towards others, and refusing to do anything, absolutely anything, just shows a lack of respect for others.
Do you think it's that this whole thing was somehow politicized?
Absolutely, because we had one leader of a political party saying one thing and then one leader of a political party saying something else. And if you associate yourself with either party, you're going to be more inclined to side in that direction. Yeah. And so, it is what it is. But I mean, I don't think anybody, again, argues about the seatbelt. So why are we arguing about masks?
Yeah. And the other thing that, something that has been happening, and even during the pandemic is, all this social injustice where people are rallying or doing protests, and now Central is probably the heart of, where people like to get together and do, whether there's a rally or a protest. How has it affected, the way you as a city council, decide whether this is something positive for the community or not? Do you guys yeah. Because it's hard, you do want to let people, protest or do rallies because it's the right, but at the same time,
it's a very difficult, and I can give you a very politically correct answer, but I'll be very honest with you, and that is that because we don't have full quarantine status right now, there is no stay-at-home order, right? Meaning there is no rule right now that if you're caught outside your house without a legitimate document reason, you'll get fined, right? So people are still kind of allowed. We're encouraging you to stay home. So with that said, the city has stopped issuing permits for lawful assemblies, meaning what you're typically supposed to do if you're going to have a rally and all that, you're supposed to inform the city, file for a permit, and all that kind of stuff. We have not issued any of those during the pandemic. So all of these assemblies have been done on the responsibility of the organizing folks. And the only thing that we've decided to do is not necessarily enforce arrests or citations, fees, and all that kind of stuff, because we know that you're exercising your free right. And because there's no full-blown quarantine status, we cannot prevent you from doing your First Amendment right without facing litigation, right? So it's really one of those things of as long as you guys are safe, we're not saying you can do it, but we're also not going to break it up. And it's a very fine line, right? Because obviously, should some stuff go wrong, meaning a fight break out, something like that, then yes, we have every right to to do it. And I could be wrong, but as far as I know, based on my briefings, all of the rallies that have taken place, at least here in El Centro, I think I attended 2. People have all respected some social distancing. From what I saw, they were wearing masks. And if you notice the trend, there was never any spike in relations to those rallies. There's no conclusive, or you couldn't point to that. Where we did see a direct correlation was on social holidays. So Mother's Day was huge. 4th of July was huge. So all these major holidays, those were when we started seeing spikes.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest reasons why, people are worried now, because we have Thanksgiving and then Christmas, all these holidays that we normally celebrate together as a family with big groups. Right. Is the city, enforcing any restrictions in terms of that?
No, but I'll be honest. In El Centro, we have a current council, and then we have a new council that will start next month sometime, right? I could tell you that in this council, the members generally, the majority of the members are not inclined to have that harsh restriction or that strict restriction. They don't want to. Like, at least 3 of them, I haven't gotten the sense that they want to, because I remember when I brought it up for Halloween, I brought it up to the mayor back in like August, and I said, hey, we need to start thinking about Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, because this isn't going to go away anytime soon. I had pushed for saying no trick-or-treating. We didn't take that approach as a majority. But I will say I'm very proud, and I have to give a shout out to my neighbors and the majority of El Centro, because many residents told me that no trick-or-treaters came to their house. It was very quiet, and that was without having to tell people you can't do it. And so the fact that people did it on their own, I have to give them a round of applause for that. And I have to say thank you that, you don't have to wait until government tells you to do something because it's the right thing to do. You do it on your own, and that's great. When it comes to Thanksgiving, I don't know. But when it comes to Christmas, there's going to be a new council, and I will have to wait and see what the new members there feel. But there's CDC guidelines, there's suggestions, right? Dr. Fauci, from the leading epidemiologist in the country, has suggested to stay home, avoid traveling, especially out of state, but stay within your region. And I will tell you that I take this for myself. So for example, my mom lives 1 street over and a block away from me. My younger sister lives in LA. My older sister lives in Colorado. My sister from LA was going to come down, and now I'm telling them probably not, right? Like at most, maybe my mom will be here at my house, and then we'll Zoom with my sister and her husband. But I am being mindful, right? Because if I'm going to tell people don't do this, the same thing goes with me, and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I would ask from, local leaders or leaders in general, like, do as you say, not, lead by example, right?
Practice what you preach. Yeah.
And I mean, and that's one thing that, regarding the vaccine, I was going to ask you, do you feel that more local leaders that are able and willing should kind of be part of the trial to kind of like show the people in the community that, it's, if you're thinking about it, it's a safe thing to do it, or it's something that you should consider?
I would say not just to our leaders, to anyone, whether you are a leader or not, by formality, just in general, anyone. If you find yourself in a circumstance where you're able to participate and you want to participate, I would encourage you to do so.
Yeah. So do I. Coming from somebody that kind of was kind of like iffy about it, I feel that it's a good thing to do. I think in the first couple of days, I was I don't know if you felt this, but in the first couple of days, I was like, man, I have something in my body that kind of like not a lot of people have. That's new, like I don't know. I just kind of felt weird. Like I told my friends, okay, some of the things that I thought about was either I turn into a superhero, or a villain, or I got the placebo, right?
You know what's funny is, so like during COVID, I'm not around a whole lot of people. Nobody sees me or whatever. But I used to be just like, slightly heavy or slightly, not athletic, but a little bit heavier than that. But since then, I've got into a routine where I do cardio, I do weights, I go for walks, I walk my dog, and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of my friends haven't really seen me how I've been, and I've bulked up a little bit. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I bulked up a little bit. So right after the vaccine, I take this picture like I'm flexing, and I just said, "Hey guys, there's something in this vaccine that turns you to Captain America." And they were all like, "What? What?" I was like, "I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding."
Yeah, it's like if I grow another eye or another couple more fingers, don't take it. But yeah, that's how I felt. Like I'll either turn into a superhero or a villain, or I got the placebo. Because a lot of people don't really know that. They ask me, "Oh, you took the shot?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't know if I got, water or saline or
yeah."
But
no, I mean it's one of those things. But was something that the doctor did tell me that I think it merits saying is that he told me, "I really hope you got the real stuff." He says, because by the time this is produced, right, in mass quantities, there is a priority list. There is a list of who's going to get it first. And so our first responders, our emergency, our essential workers, they're going to get it first. And then it's going to be our most vulnerable population, and then the general public. So there's a tiered here. And so he was saying, this is your opportunity to potentially get the real stuff early on, which means you'll be good. Because in a normal circumstance, you probably wouldn't get this until, sometime next year. And I have a general timeline in my mind. It's really based on nothing, but just kind of there's been some mention at the national level of when all this stuff is kind of going to roll out. And so, Dr. Fauci mentioned April of next year that it would be produced in an amount to where you can give it to essential workers and all that kind of stuff. So that tells me maybe June, July, August, September. That's more or less those months where by next summer, where the general public will be able to get it, right? Like where everyone. So I'm really hoping, again, based on nothing, just my own personal timeline of idealism, that by this time next year, a significant majority of the population should be vaccinated, especially those who want it would have had access to it, basically.
And are you afraid of, because even like I said, like the flu shot, I wasn't somebody that took the flu shot a lot, or I don't think I ever took the flu shot. Are you afraid that a lot of people are going to go that route where like, oh no, I'm not going to take it. I mean, not saying anti-vaxxers, but that people in general like aren't, they don't feel safe with the vaccine. Do you feel that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I remember having this conversation. So an ex-girlfriend of mine was very adamant. And I told this to the doctor, very adamant about never, ever, no matter what version, 1.0, 2.0, 5.0 of the vaccine, she would never take it, nor she would ever give it to her kids. And the doctor said, well, I hope the vaccine wasn't the reason why you guys broke up. I'm like, no. It was like other stuff, right? I'm like, it just happened to be that was a conversation. So she's definitely one. And that I know that there's nothing I could say or do to change her mind. So yes, people like that do exist. Unfortunately, like many things, like for example, hepatitis, there are going to be requirements in order to protect everyone. I would imagine that sometime next year, the County Office of Education is going to have to make a decision, or even the state of California, to say that if you want your child back in the classroom, they're going to have to be vaccinated. If you, want to go back to work and you're working for a public entity like IID, the county, the city, whatever, you have to be vaccinated. And whether or not that will be something that we can enforce in order to require more and more people. But there certainly will be a sprinkle of people out there that will just refuse, and there's no enganche, right? And to force them to do it because of what they do for a living or what they believe in.
Yeah, it's crazy. Because I was listening to, it was an interview on 60 Minutes, and it was a general that's being in charge of the distribution of the vaccine and stuff, and he was like, yeah, like my biggest worry is people not taking this vaccine that we're producing for the safety of everybody. And I mean, yeah,
and the reason why it's a scary thought is because they could potentially be carriers, and there will be the conduits by which it will go from you to me or something like that. Whereas if we're both vaccinated, then theoretically we should be fine. But say for example, an older person couldn't get it yet, right? And they were scheduled to get their vaccine sometime, and in between that week that they had to wait, they were exposed to this person. I think about like the chicken pox, like for example, I hear, right? I don't have kids yet, but I hear that parents will expose their children to chicken pox because, to get it out of the way, get it, build the antibodies, and you're fine. But that it's deadly for an adult to get it, right? It can cause significant damage. So then I think about this virus. The rate of recovery for kids, for young adults in their 20s, maybe even 30s, is high. But the rate of recovery for somebody 60 years old, 70 years old is very low. And so we have to be mindful about that too, that the vaccine could be for you, but it also could be to kind of shield so that you don't get it and pass it on.
Yeah. And that's one of the, something that I always think about is, how many people lost their parents, their grandparents. And I think the saddest thing about it is that, they went to the hospital and obviously you couldn't go visit them because, they weren't allowing people to go visit them. Right. So they died alone, And, I think my dad is, he's 73. I think he turned 73. Yeah. And so he's a high risk. So like, that's something that it's always in the back of my mind where like, if I get affected and I give it to him so it's like, that alone is like one of the biggest reasons why I kind of like decided to, go be part of this because, yeah, I mean, like, it's sad thinking about it, about people who went through that, and I don't want to go through it. So like, if I could do a little bit of be a part of something like this, why not?
Yeah, no, in two different occasions, I went with Councilman Edgar Garcia from one of my colleagues on council, and we toured the intensive care unit, and it was sad, very sad. You see the desperation of, you see señores, and I saw the people that were in the ICUs, and you just think like, that could be my tío, that could be my dad, that could be my grandma. And because of the level of infectiousness, they really don't have anybody they have no one in the room. And the doctors that go in there, they have these full suit getup. So you can imagine, as much as for the parents that are out there that understand the importance of touch to a child, to a baby, where you give them a kiss, you hug them, you hold their hand and all that stuff. I don't think really that goes away. We just, as we get older, we're able to deal with the lack of that as adults, right? We have a little bit more discipline in that sense. But when you think about the long period of time, 2 weeks where there is no physical contact, there is no like conversation to be had, you're stuck there. It's very sad. And the second time that I went, I was joined with Congressman Juan Vargas, and we toured it again. I think in a way, if I think about it a little bit more, that probably played a role into why I wanted to participate in the trial, because if our participation could make it someday sooner that fewer people end up there, or that no more people end up there, I think we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to the community to do our part so that fewer and fewer people end up like that. Yeah. Because I don't know how the medical folks do it. Maybe it's part of the training, but I really honestly think that the majority of people in our community would not be okay for a while after seeing what I saw and how the conditions of the people that are at the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, and you see videos of, nurses and doctors are breaking down after, their shifts and COVID, ICU and all these things that they deal with during COVID. And yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, it's and I think that the craziest thing is like you would see people like record the outside of the hospital, like saying like, oh, nothing's happening. Look, it's dead. Like, COVID's not real. Like, I was like, well, you're filming the outside of the hospital, not the inside. Like,
Yeah, very, very little happens outside.
Yeah.
Not inside. So for example, at ECRMC, El Centro Regional Medical Center, Dr. Edward, I have to say, I'm so happy that someone with medical training is at the helm of the hospital to make decisions. And so, because of his military training, he was able to prepare early on, even before I knew what he was doing, or even, let's assume I would have said, hey, how come we don't do that? He was already doing it. And it's all his military training coming into play. So he has a tent outside of the emergency room, and that's the intake for anybody who assumes that they are COVID positive, so that he's able to perform the tests, right? Staff is able to perform the tests and intake them, get their information, but separate them from the general population within the hospital, right? And still be able to provide them with air, AC. It's more of a filtered circulation of air in there, because should they be exposed, right, then the virus is obviously really present. So he thought about all this stuff. And so we were prepared for a lot beyond what people thought that we were, and we really were. But even with all the preparation in the world, there's always a limit. And because we had so many people that actually ended up being at the hospital, we reached that limit, unfortunately, during the last few months. And that's when we needed to start sending folks to other hospitals in other areas. And then we even had an agreement with the state of California, and I believe with the federal government, to provide some space at the gym at IBC.
Yeah, I think my brother-in-law was there a couple of days.
Oh, wow.
It's because he was bad enough for the first day that they had him at the hospital, and then once he got a little bit more stable, they took him to IBC.
Yeah, and from my understanding, the space in IBC was a recovery, because you remember you needed to at least be isolated for 2 weeks. You needed to pass a certain time. And for a lot of people, they don't have the luxury of being able to go home, because if they went home, they would be exposing family members. And so that was a space specifically so that you could recover safely. And from there, you would be able to go home once you were cleared. But in this next wave that we're hitting right now, I think we're going to definitely look into opening that again if we haven't already. But we're going to use it for more like intensive care unit type, which would require nurses and special equipment in order to be utilized. And I think that in the last briefing that I got, the state of California is writing the check for us to be able to hire 50 additional nurses. I think 40 are going to ECRMC, and like 10 or 12, I think, are going to Pioneers. So
you guys are expecting a big wave, bigger than before the first one, or?
Oh yeah. My assumption is, and it's kind of, I'm hoping people understand the gravity of what's coming, because viruses are very seasonal in the sense that they thrive better in certain conditions. And so they clearly do not survive that well in the summer when the heat is a little hotter and the sun is shining brighter. So there's a lot of UV rays that make it weaker, but it's at its strongest during the winter. And that's the time that we're coming towards. And so really if you think about it, when it first hit us in March, we were in spring and it hit us pretty hard. Now we're heading towards winter where the temperatures are far less. You know, the weather is crazier, the wind blows harder, and our immune systems are probably at its lowest. So I anticipate, and every medical expert that I've talked to expects that during this holiday season, January, February, is going to be the hardest. And if you look at the graph of where we were in terms of cases, March, April, May, June, and then I think July and August was our worst. September, October, it dipped down. And now we are right now in November where we were in May earlier this year in terms of cases, in terms of the number of people in the hospitals, all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope that people, you know, do their part in terms of social distancing, wear their mask, washing their hands. It's really important right now. Yep.
It's really to try to ask people to participate in that, because it's really like, you know, what we have gone through is just a fraction of what potentially the numbers that we could hit in the next few months. And so we really, really need to ask people to please wash your hands, social distance, wear your mask, so that we can make the effort to not have so many people pass away, to make the effort so that so many people do not end up in the hospital. Because I would hate for your family to be part of the list of 340 plus families and counting that have lost someone in the valley.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Tomas, thank you for your time. We're almost at an hour. Anything else any final thoughts that you would like to, you know, share with us?
Just two, and that is, if you find yourself able and willing to participate in the vaccination trials at El Centro Regional Medical Center, please contact the hospital, contact Dr. Tomaszewski, and they are more than happy to accept you and to put you into the program. And number two, again, I can't stress this enough, and I'm begging for your listeners to please remember to wear a mask, to wash your hands, to social distance at all possible, and to please be safe during the holidays that are coming up, and try to avoid mass gatherings.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll leave links to, because there's a website where you can go for the trial vaccine for here in the Valley. I'll leave a link to that website. I think that's the easiest way. That's how I got in contact with them. You know, I filled out my information. They called me, they set up an appointment. You go, and I mean, the first appointment is kind of lengthy because you're reading through the paperwork.
That's right.
But I hear that the other ones, the follow-up is in and out. Go get blood work.
Correct.
And
Correct. It was probably maybe 10 minutes. I got there like 8:15, 8:20, and I was out of there by 8:30.
So, I'm like Tomas said, you know, I really, really encourage, you know, you guys to be part of this if you're willing and able. It's, I don't know, you feel like you've been doing something, you know, for the community and just for the country in general, because we're all in this situation together.
Yes.
But yeah, I want to thank you again for the time.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Like I said, maybe you'll come back some other time and we'll talk, you know, politics or other things, because before this,
I'd love to.
We were talking about, you know, other things besides COVID. But I wanted to focus today on this because, like I said, we have something in common. We're part of this this trial.
That's right.
But yeah, I want to thank everybody for listening or watching. Stay safe, wear your face mask, wash your hands, and social distance. And let's bring these numbers down. All right, guys.
Exactly.
See you guys in the next one. Peace.